What's up, guys?
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good night.
This is Behind the Scenes
Of our best days.
podcast, and this is
Season 4.
Season 4.
Yeah.
And we are so grateful to be with you guys.
So great.
We're so thankful for anyone who listens to us.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like us,
Yeah.
we're like,
still listening.
you're still listening.
Yeah.
Even if you're like, I hate these
Yeah,
guys.
if you listen for critique,
Even if you listen to make fun of us,
we're grateful.
we're grateful. It's like,
Yeah.
man, we're so blessed by your
Yeah.
critique.
Absolutely.
By your critiquing. Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of you, again, I always feel like I need to explain what we are, who we are. My name is John.
My name
This
is Arvin.
Yes, this is John. This is Arvin.
I'm John.
And basically, we help on the live production side with Victory Church here in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
We have an entity of 5 different entities. We have a camp. We have a Bible college, a Christian school. Then we have a Dream Center.
Right.
And then we have our central campus
Yeah.
with 2 other campuses and, of course, our online community. And within it, you know, we serve our pastors, Pastor Paul and Ashley.
Yeah.
You know, some great things have been happening this summer, working on a fall film and on our Christmas 2022 script.
Absolutely.
And we had our Victory Youth Conference this summer.
Yeah.
Whew. We're also working on an album with Victory Worship
Amazing.
that they'll be releasing. So you guys get to see the best days.
Yeah.
But this podcast is talking about behind the scenes of the best
Absolutely.
days.
Absolutely.
And in fact, okay, so you actually were getting ready to tell a story
Oh,
that has
yeah.
nothing to do with anything, but I'm just making a segue sentence.
I bet I'll
But
figure
it's
out how
like,
to intro it.
Okay, so
figure
for
out.
instance, if those of you who have been in an Uber, you're like, okay, this is what I get shown. This is my experience in the Uber. But then there's the behind the scenes of an Uber. There is a whole digestive immunity system within an Uber.
That's very good.
You know, which is just a thing. But
Yeah.
you had an Uber
I
experience.
was at a McDonald's. Pause for applause. I was at a McDonald's in Oklahoma City yesterday. I was in town for an event, and then I had walked to the McDonald's from the stadium. It was so hot that I just ordered an Uber back to it, and this car pulls up. It's me and 3 friends, and the coolest guy I've probably ever met is
The Uber guy.
Yeah, his name was Michael. He had amazing like dreads down to his waist, and his car is covered in Minnesota Vikings like flags, carpet. The steering wheel is a Minnesota Vikings steering wheel, and
Okay.
we
And
were
this is in Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City.
All right,
we're
just
headed
for clarity.
to see Kendrick Lamar in Oklahoma City on his new tour. And I get in, and I guess he knew that was happening because he put Kendrick on in the car. And I walk in, and it was this pleasant conversation. And then he got me right up to the door of the stadium. So it was such a sweet experience. I really enjoyed it. I just was like, I got out, and I was like, 5 stars for sure.
Yeah,
Five-
and you're like, I know you just drove me across the street, and this was a
Not far at
10-second
all.
car ride.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it did change
It was like
my
a
life.
$6 Uber, but it was. I got out and I was like, man, that was great.
That was pleasant.
Yeah.
You're like, that was actually better than the concert. What was his name?
His name was Michael.
Have any of you ever had a powerful connection to your Uber driver? For me, I know, like there has been different moments where I guess I just grew up with my parents were the founding pastors here at Victory. Absolutely. And I don't know if your parents are these people to where wherever they are sitting in an airplane or in an Uber, it is an opportunity for them to say, do you know Jesus?
Yeah.
If you were to die right now,
Yeah.
if you were to get in a car wreck and our heads go through this front of this windshield and we were to be decapitated, would you go to heaven or hell?
Yeah.
And then the Uber person, of course, is shook and is like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
And it's like, are you a believer?
Right.
Anyways, that type of a segue. I
forgot to tell you the funniest part
Yes.
is he's covered in Minnesota Vikings gear.
Yes.
And I go, oh, are you from Minnesota? And he goes, mm-mm. Yeah.
just a big fan.
He's just like a big fan, I guess.
Man, I'm so grateful for humanity, for
Yeah,
things like that
so
happen. It just
unique,
makes the day better.
eclectic. Yeah.
Okay, so back to my story. Thank you
Please,
for interrupting.
please. Yes, you're welcome.
So, yeah, there has been multiple times where someone began venting to me, where
Really?
an Uber driver venting to me about a relationship,
yeah.
and I go, yeah, man. Like I was giving him nothing. I wasn't giving at all.
Yeah.
And then he began to cry.
Oh,
and then
my
he was like,
goodness.
so can you help me? Pulls out a dating app, and he was like, what do you think?
Oh, my
And he was like, who
gosh.
should be my rebound?
Oh my god.
And he is showing me on his phone who he's swiping left, swiping right on.
Yeah.
And I go, you know, I think, I mean, you're just taking me to the airport.
Yeah.
So, and then I go, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I pray for you?
Oh, wow.
And this has happened twice.
Nice.
Not the whole app thing, but where someone was having an issue with their relationship, a breakup or a divorce or something like that.
Sure.
And they were just venting, and then I prayed for them, and I was like, hey, let me just pray. Real quick prayer, and then cried.
Yeah.
And then they were like, can I hug you?
Oh my gosh.
I've had 2
Wow.
Uber drivers hug me. And I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
okay, maybe I do have a little bit of Pastor Sharon in me,
That's
which is my mom.
that's right.
But with less of the, like, like if you were to die right now.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, you have your own style.
Yeah. So anyway, so Ubers are great.
Absolutely.
And we would love to hear those of you who are listening or
Uber
watching,
stories.
maybe your funny Uber stories. So
Yeah.
today we are actually talking about this is something that me and Arvin have been digesting, has been the immunity of an institution.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a really boring long word. Basically what it is it's like, you have a body, you're healthy,
Yeah.
but maybe you have a cough. Not COVID, but a cough.
Right.
But you can still function.
Exactly.
That's the same thing at a church, at an organization.
Yeah.
So that is a institutional immunity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for instance, we have talked about this before. Someone that I really like is Bob Iger, who was once over Disney.
Yeah.
And during that time, he talked about it was in the middle of them finalizing their partnership with Marvel. That and all of the Disney parks were running, everything was going on. Now, then tragedy struck at one of their resorts with a young kid that got attacked by an alligator.
Yeah. In Florida.
Florida.
Yeah.
And you listen to his, he was like, I was in this other part of the world finalizing a deal of getting Marvel with Disney.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, I'm on the phone with a family that has just lost their son.
Unbelievable.
Those two things coexisting in the same day.
Yikes.
And, of course, and regardless where you stand with Disney, that's not what this is about.
Yeah, no,
the
I
whole
don't care
point
about
is
that at all.
that the organization of them being like, okay, is like, what do we need to do to be the best thing for this family right now?
Yeah.
What do we need to do to comfort, to be there for them?
Yeah.
Very, very awful. And then to go the extra mile to make sure that this never happens again.
Absolutely.
And then at the same time, while all this is happening, having a smile on your face because that night is the fireworks show.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Unbelievable.
Imagine being a leader.
Yeah.
And during worship, someone comes up to you, and now this is this is not anything like it, but the immunity of an institution of, now this happened to us before. This is so vastly different from the Disney example, but we're in the middle of worship, and then all of a sudden the power goes out.
Yeah.
Then, and our sanctuary, it seats a little over 4,300 people. It was pretty full, and during that, someone comes up to Pastor Paul in the front and they go, the power is off. Our generators are being turned on. The power won't come on for another 2 hours. So it is completely dark.
Yeah.
The floodlights are on, and we have kids in classrooms.
Oh my God.
You have like kid services, nursery. And so immediately the question is, do we still go through with church?
Yeah.
Because church has just been going for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
The room is full. Everyone is seated.
Oh my God.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, Pastor Paul is like, man, I prepared all week for this sermon. I have this word.
Yeah.
So now we set up this issue. This issue actually happened.
Yeah.
So immediately, now how we handled it is probably different from other organizations or other ministries.
Sure.
It's probably different. Now, how we handled it is, all right, let's move all of the kids into rooms with windows.
Nice.
All right, so
Nice.
let's do that. All right, we had backup box fans. Let's put box fans in all of the rooms.
Yeah.
It was not during a hot time of the year, thank
Cool,
God.
thank God.
Then we immediately got the larger carpet fans that you would do to like dry carpet, brought them in the sanctuary, turned them on. So it was pretty loud.
Yeah.
But then we went into an acoustic worship set.
Wow, yeah.
And we had just come back from a missions trip to Ghana, Africa.
goodness.
And so Pastor Paul was on this kick of being like,
Wow.
hey, I was just in a soccer stadium where everyone was singing How Great Is Our God. And there was 8,000 people there and they did not have electricity.
Yeah.
I think we can do this and get out of our American bubble.
Right, right.
And so
Wow.
for him, now, of course, what I'm saying is that this is different for every
Sure,
church.
sure.
So I'm not saying you should copy and paste this, but Pastor Paul then began to preach a sermon and go into worship from a megaphone that
Wow.
we
Yeah.
that we had for like youth, for like a youth camp service or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. So anyways, that happened, and then that whole time everyone was behind the scenes rushing, trying to figure out when we release these adults.
Mm-hmm.
What do we need to do to make sure everyone is safe, that no one falls?
Wow.
Because they're
Yeah.
lawsuits.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if parents feel like they need to go get their kids right now and leave,
Yeah.
let's get them their kids.
Right,
Like,
right.
you have everything from customer service. So anyways, thank God, it like the hand of God was on it. No one got hurt. No lawsuit. But like,
Wow.
if you've been in a ministry for 40 years, Victory
Yeah.
has been for 41 years.
Yeah.
You're going to experience things that are going to test your institutional immunity.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes, at least for Victory, there are some really great ministries out there that are like everything is planned to a T.
Yeah.
I don't know about those of you listening, but like for me, I love everything organized.
Sure.
I like things color coded.
Yeah.
I have different Sharpies and markers
Yeah.
on my to-do list that I like scratching off that is just kind of funky or whatever. One thing that I can always grow in is flexibility and last minute curveballs.
Sure. Yeah.
So for Victory, it is unique because it is somewhat of a cruise ship.
Sure.
Because of the 5 entities, and you can't turn a cruise ship on a dime.
No. Yeah.
So like one decision, something that we're in right now. This summer of 2022, we moved our services from 11 a.m. to 11:15
Yeah.
because of the animosity that would happen with parents picking up the kids from the 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
dropping off the kids for the 11,
Yeah.
and the line of parents
Absolutely.
waiting.
Yeah.
Because of security, we do like a check-in process with every single kid.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. As you should.
regardless if the service is amazing and God moves, if people are if people are ticked,
Yeah. I'll fix it. Yeah.
if people are ticked,
Yeah.
then they're never going to come back,
Yeah.
and then we didn't really do our job as a church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we're like, let's push it back 15 minutes. So now we're like, hey, we're coming back into the school year.
Yeah.
Do we go back to 11 a.m. or do we keep it at 11:15? For different reasons. So we're kind of going through, but and the conversation is, well, like there's pros and cons to each thing.
Yeah.
But bottom line is that everyone is like, but our goal is to be flexible. Because once we decide, no, this is the only way,
Right.
then we're not open
Yeah.
to adjusting and shifting. Now, I say all this to be, I believe in once you make a decision
Yeah.
from an organization or from leadership, you
Sure.
got to stick with
Yeah.
it.
Sure.
Or you can go, we're going to do this for 8 weeks,
Yeah.
or we're going to do this for 3 months and then see
Yeah.
where we're at.
Absolutely.
As long as you're communicating to people and stuff like that. But anyways, you said something about facilitating flexibility. Talk about that
Oh,
from
yeah.
behind the scenes of a production. Because
Yeah.
right now we're working on fall film.
Absolutely.
And in a perfect world, we have people that we work with.
Sure.
Some of our cinematographer.
Yeah.
Ryan Stafford.
Yeah.
Certain people
Yeah.
that they love everything planned out.
Totally.
Excel sheet.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
talk about facilitating flexibility
Yeah.
within your organization.
Absolutely. I'm the same way where I really enjoy having my ducks in a row, making sure everything is presentable, ready to go, and that everyone has the vision on their mind, the same verbiage, et cetera, et cetera. I love it. Then there are moments where, because the world is fluid, because there's a cruise ship involved, because there's so many things going on all at once, there are unpredictable factors like weather conditions for the cruise ship, basically. And
he's not talking about a real cruise ship.
No, I mean like the
talking
institution that we work in, but also like, I mean, this could apply to a family unit. Like if you're a family, I've talked to people who are moms who have specific plans for how they want their kids' days to go. And then life happens, you know?
Right.
And life happens the most in a church environment. And
For sure.
So with a lot of these productions that we have, there's a lot of chaos in the world around us, or in the events we have, or however we're trying to make something happen. And it can be a temptation. This is very behind the scenes. I love that we're talking about this.
Talk it.
It can be a temptation to resign yourself to, it's all just chaos. And you just kind of
say that.
Yeah, say it, experience
Spread it,
throw the papers in the air and go,
say it to the actors,
right.
Say it to the wardrobe team, the makeup team, being like, rolling your eyes.
Right. But what that is the equivalent of, if I'm a healthy person and then I get a cough, being like, I'm dying.
Oh.
And it's becoming hopeless. So
that
then
is good.
The attitudes of
I hope you guys are
yeah
connecting the dots with what Arvin is saying.
Basically, where I'm headed is that leadership demands not fakeness, but faith in the long-term reality over the short-term reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ministry and leadership requires faith and trust in the long-term reality.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that your feelings of, I'm so upset, things are so chaotic.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that your emotions aren't real.
Right.
It just means after an hour, you may not feel the same.
Sure. Yeah.
And so just be careful about making a concrete assumption.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's that right now, this person's frustrating you. Right now, this situation is making you upset. I think Pastor Paul, no one's asked me to say this about him, but I think he's probably one of the best people I've seen who publicly and privately has a duck's back. Meaning, like, it's just going to fall off me. It's not the whole Punchinello, Max Lucado story. Like, I'm not going to let your criticism or your praise stick to me for too long.
Yeah.
And so on these productions, I've seen it during conferences. It's just that there are so many fluid things happening, moving parts, and a poor leader who may not even know that it's bad leadership will kind of demonstrate how freaked out they are and showcase it to other people. And there are moments where...
And some people get axed, fired right away.
Oh, yeah. They're out of the picture. But then there are moments where you have to pause and say, okay, is this thing still happening? Are the people still involved? Are we still getting, in our case, it's often like, are we still getting the footage and the shot?
Yeah.
And then is there an immune system that needs to fight back against, I noticed that this person who was delegated this specific area, they crumbled under the pressure and then they took it out on a volunteer.
Ooh, okay.
And,
so for example, it's like if we are building a large prop, one year I really, really wanted to do a large Cobra.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we built a large Cobra.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of people. There was an individual who was over it, and it was like within a production. And we brought it out, and it just wasn't working within the production. And it was like the night before we were going to open up, but they spent so much time on it, and there was volunteers involved, people who tried their best, who did their best, who sacrificed, stayed up late, and then, the institution of Victory Productions, like our immunity is, okay, do we... The thing was, and thank God it worked out. I thought it was not going to go well, but it was like we went to the person that was over it, and instead of shifting blame, like what you just said, they were like, you know what? I agree. It is not working. And so we told them, we're like, thank you. It's not going to be used.
Yeah.
And we don't know if it ever will be.
Yeah.
And I know the feelings were hurt.
Sure.
I know.
Sure.
I could see it. You could see it.
Right.
I felt like a piece of poo, saying it.
No, yeah.
But then, it was like I saw how they responded, and I was like, man, they are incredible.
Yeah.
And I know that that's not like it everywhere.
No, that's what's interesting.
But maybe you have been involved at a ministry or at an organization to where whoever's over planning a Christmas party and things don't happen, and then they point and they blame the volunteers.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And you're just like, well, you were over it.
Yeah.
Take ownership of it. So anyways, that is a institutional immunity.
Yeah.
It is how strong is the immunity of your organization or your department or your worship team or your creative department or of your family or whatever it is. Is that sometimes it is one of those things that it like you said, if I have a cough, do I go, I'm dying.
I guess I'm dead.
I guess I'm dead.
It's over. Yeah.
Or when you have a cough, you're like, I'm going to take some vitamin C and I'm still going to be able to perform.
Exactly.
It's the same thing whenever you hit those things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
We had a Victory Youth Conference this summer. And the cool thing is that so whenever we do our Victory Conference, there's so many people involved. But with this youth conference, everyone who put it on was like 24 years old and younger.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking like from 17 years old to 24 years
Incredible.
old. They put on the whole conference.
So cool.
And it was mind-blowing to where I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Thank God. And like I said, I know this isn't the case everywhere. Now, leading up, the few days before, it was kind of a poop storm a little bit. Trying to figure out things from budget and just things that they didn't think of because none of these people have children. And so they're not thinking from a parent's perspective on safety or making sure that bathrooms are unlocked or small things of like, do we have trash cans set up? Or all of those small details, that's where we're stepping in and we're helping, as adults, but allowing them the immunity of victory of being like, okay, yes, there was a lot of things not done right leading up into it, but look at the impact God had on this conference
100%.
And look what God did through the young leaders.
Exactly.
And it was above and beyond. It was one of the best things we've ever done in our ministry.
Unbelievable. Wow.
It really was. And it wasn't that when I say the best things we've ever done, it was the best thing that I've seen God do through students
Praise God.
and through young leaders.
Incredible.
To where I was like, okay.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that this was necessary.
Yeah.
It was necessary for us to get thrown into the fire and then, start dancing and figure things out. You know what I mean? Because it made people grow up and made them be like, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so anyways, more about institutional immunity is also picking your pain.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's amazing.
So we go back to that 11 a.m. and 11:15 service. So right now, and I know that this probably doesn't apply to everyone who's listening, but here it is that when you start a service at 11:15, and for us, Pastor Paul and Pastor Ashley, they really believe in a worship experience. There are some churches that they go, hey, worship is 15 minutes, ministry time is 2 minutes, and then we go into videos, and then there's offering, and then there's a video, and then there's a sermon, and then we're done by an hour and 20 minutes.
Sure.
Everything is boom, bop, bing. It's timed, which is great.
Sure, absolutely.
That's just not how we are.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that we had to figure out. Who are we?
Yeah.
Like whenever Victory says we're a church, what does that mean? For us, it is definitely Pastor Paul. He is going to do what he does in his sermon.
Yeah.
Me working with him and being the creative director and being over live production, I just was like, I'm going to stop telling my pastor and my younger brother what to do. I'm just going to allow him to flow.
Yeah.
I trust him.
Yeah.
Because I kept on trying to put him in a box of being like, hey, you need to end this time. And so I literally, while he was preaching, this was a few years ago, I'm not proud of it, I would send up the keys.
Oh, okay.
And then Pastor Paul, whenever you send up the keys, FYI, it means let's wrap it up.
It's the Oscars music coming on.
It's the Oscars music coming on to being like, okay, let's get to the point. Let's get to the altar call because people have to, because I'm all about systems and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
And then Pastor Paul would look back at the keys and he would finish.
Yeah.
And it may be 20 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
And then there was multiple times where he'd be like, I know someone sent up the keys because they want me to finish. But and then he would ask the congregation, he'd go, do you guys mind if I go a little bit longer?
Yeah.
And they would go, yeah.
Yeah, of course, every time.
Because
Yeah.
he was on a roll.
Absolutely.
Like God was speaking, God was moving. And I was like, okay, I'm the idiot that is trying to do this. The same thing in worship is that we began putting in our planning center a designated time to where it was a flow time. Again, I know this is not for every church, but instead of doing 4 songs, it was like, we're going to do 3 songs. And then right here during this moment, it's a flow time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like, well, what's going to happen during that time? Well, because because we've gotten to a point, I don't think you can do that right off the bat. Like I said, this is for Victory. It's not for any other church.
Need muscle to be that flexible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things to where our pastors felt we are going to put healthy pressure on our worship team to flow in the Spirit during that time, which is, it could bomb. And you know what? It had before.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes it did.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you stop doing it because the institutional immunity is, you know what?
Yeah.
We had a cough, but this is not going to stop us from continuing to do what we do.
Exactly.
I am sore from working out, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to work out today.
100% right. Yeah.
So it was like, okay, so if this is who we think we should be, we're going to keep this spot in. So, but it is also picking your pain of being like, it may not be awesome the first time.
Right. Sure.
Because you, like, this is not planned.
Yeah.
And this is a time where we're going to allow God to move.
Right.
Now, with the services, it is, okay, do we go back to the 11 a.m. service? If we do, then we could go back to upset parents in that thing.
Transition time.
That transition time.
Yeah.
But people get out in time to go to lunch.
Sure.
Here's the thing. Whenever you do a service at 11:15 and you have a good, healthy service, Victory is a little bit longer than an hour and a half, you know, an hour and 40 minutes.
Sure.
That means that kids are hungry in kids service.
Yeah.
So it is like, okay, do we want hungry kids with tummies growling in service?
Yeah.
To where people turn around and they go, what was that? And it's like, my stomach is growling because it is like 12:45 and we haven't eaten because we're in service. Or do you have upset parents before? So you're picking your pain to figure out, okay, what do we want?
Yeah. Which pain
Are we okay with?
Yeah.
And then it came to the point to where our children's team was like, we will provide snacks. So we're
smart.
okay with that pain.
Yeah.
Because of this, we're able to better serve our parents and give them a better product. So anyways, wherever you are at, it is unique to ask those questions of, okay, number one, who are we whenever we say this is who we are?
Right.
And then your immunity is like, sometimes with our productions is I am notorious for if I don't like a song, I will continue to work on it in a studio.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, our dance choreographer, Jill Stafford, wants to choreograph the whole dance a month out. That way, because we're working with volunteers. They're not like professional dancers.
No, sure.
They do it awesome, but it's like, so if she choreographs a dance and I add a different beat to it after she's already choreographed 150 cast members, you better believe there is a very animosity or a ticked off conversation that happens. And then I respond and I'm like, hey, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if this song did not
sound this
evolve.
way.
If it did not sound this way, because I have this overall perspective of how I'm wanting the production to go. And so I know you're upset. I apologize. In the future, I'm going to get better at getting this sooner. But just so you know, until the day I die, until we're doing these productions or whatever, I'm probably going to be evolving the music up into 2 weeks to maybe even 10 days out before the production. So, but that is just who we are. That's part of Victory Productions.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Which is kind of a unique niche thing to do or say, but that's what we're talking about picking your pain, of being like, oh man, Do I not do anything?
Right.
Do I just allow them to move forward? And then you're there and you're like, ugh, this is not as awesome as it could be. Do you leave in the Cobra? Do you leave in the dance with the old music that you're not crazy about?
Right.
Or do you just rip that Band-Aid off and you go, we're going to do it because we have facilitated flexibility. And within our immune system, our immune system is strong.
We can handle this.
We can handle this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the point of it, is that you create a model that can constantly, from a place of organization, pull the kite back toward organization. But on the way, the flexibility allows the production, the day that you have scheduled ahead of you, the conference, whatever the event may be, it enables the best parts to actually happen. Where we always talk about having margin for miracles, where it's like, make a plan. Absolutely. But Mike Tyson said it really well. Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
That's true.
That's what's going to happen. And so I've seen a lot of people, and I think this is where this applies to the majority of people in this way. You have dreams and plans and visions and goals for your life, whether they're church or not. They have nothing, doesn't matter. Let's say a guy's saying, I really want to preach. You go, okay, great. Can you fly 19 hours to Burkina Faso, and can you ride in the back of a car without AC for 8 hours and then get several bug bites, and then they hand you the mic and say, go ahead. So what I'm saying is, when you envision the vision, you just see it happening. But the way to it...
Yeah. But so you see, no, I like where you're going.
Yeah.
So you're like, man, I see this dream of one day this building being built.
Sure.
I'm going to buy this land.
Sure.
I'm going to buy 10 acres.
Yeah.
And I'm going to build fill in the blank. I'm going to build the world's greatest athletic complex, the world's greatest lifetime fitness. And this is what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But can you do it when the city comes back and they say, hey, zoning permits
here's the cost.
This and that. This is the cost.
Yeah.
And we know that you counted the cost of the building structure, but did you count the cost of getting in dirt to level the ground?
Right.
Because without leveling the ground, if you just lay concrete,
it's not gonna work.
then it's not going to work, and the foundation will crumble after 2 years.
Absolutely.
It is very unique how people want the vision, but it is the counting the cost.
And that's what happens.
It's picking the pain.
Yeah.
And all that is. This is what the whole point of today's podcast is building your immunity.
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
Again, I'm not talking about vitamin C, even though that's great.
Sure.
I'm not talking about your physical body. I'm talking about building your immunity around what your vision is.
Exactly.
Around what your organization is. Being like, okay, is this, and anytime you face something, go ahead and asking.
Right.
Is this building my immunity, or is this something where I should throw in the towel?
Yeah. And most people, unfortunately, that's what ends up happening, is en route to the God-given dream, whatever it might be, the costs of heightening your health and immune system mentally and emotionally is too severe, and people decide to quit. A biblical example I really like is David, who was the king of Israel. One of his sons rebels against him, tries to take over.
Yeah.
And so they start this civil war out of ego, out of whatever, nothing. And innocent people die, and then David's son Absalom ends up dying as well. And so technically David has won publicly, but privately he is mourning the loss of his son.
Because his son died.
Not just his physical death, but the fact that my son's heart was turned against me.
Ooh,
and so the attack came
tough.
there. And so he's mourning the loss of his son. And then when the soldiers come back, the vibe is not, we just won a battle. We just saved our nation. The vibe is like, oh, he's really hurt and upset. So one of his advisors, I forget the name, but one of it, I don't know, whoever it was, comes to him and says, hey, like, I understand what you're going through. However, right now, you need to bleed in private, and I need you to show those soldiers that you're proud of what they just did. And so that's the challenge of...
And so David did that.
David does. He shows up, he goes, hey, thanks. Like, what you did was amazing. What you did was incredible.
And we got our nation back. Wow. Okay. So everyone who wants to be a leader, that is such a strong story
Right.
because you don't think about, you think, all right, just a quick outline of what Arvin just said.
Yeah.
And as we come to an end,
Sure.
is that David was a king and leader. He was a head pastor of a church.
Sure.
And then his son, who was the youth pastor, turned against him,
Yeah.
took over the church, bashed his name,
Yeah.
and then started a war
Yeah.
wanting to kill his own father.
Right.
And so David was forced into a war, got the church back,
Yeah.
got the nation back, but his son died in the
Right.
process.
Right.
So he was like, that was bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh.
Right.
That was my son. He turned against me.
Yeah.
I had to fight him, and he died.
Right.
But then, that I know I'm saying a church, but then, the people come back and they were like, hey, we did this. Like, do we celebrate? Is it a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Like, we're looking to you as our pH level. And David has both of those coexisting inside of him as a leader.
Right.
Can you have both things coexisting in you? Can you have the venom and the and basically the venom cure coexisting in your immune system?
That's right.
That is where you have a strong immune system as a
Right.
leader.
Right.
And you don't throw in the towel. You don't shut up. You go, I'm going to mourn privately, and then I'm going to praise these men because they did give their lives.
Everything they needed to do. Yeah, they did it.
They did it.
Right.
And so, anyways, it is unique that people want leadership until they realize the immune system that it takes.
Yeah, Gene Edwards wrote that book, A Tale of Three Kings, and in one of the scenes, he poetically says, David's talking to one of the guys and explaining the situation with Absalom, and David sarcastically shouts, he goes, and men fight to become kings? Meaning, like, who would want this?
Yeah,
who would
who would
ask
want?
for this? So I think that, and this is the last thing I say, I know we're wrapping up, but the fascinating thing is that this is a core tenet of the heart of God, that he not only accounts for the dream he gives you, but he understands the cost, and he's trying to heighten your immune system so that it costs you less pain on the way. So you can pick your pain, because if you don't pick your pain will pick you.
Ooh,
like,
if you don't pick your pain will pick you.
If I don't pick the pain of get up early, go to the gym, lift weights, do some cardio, and then get cleaned up and go to work, then the worst pain I've ever felt in my life is after a 3-4 year period of not going to the gym. The pain in my body, the pain in my joints, the pain in my blood work, the pain in hearing a doctor tell me how I have to eat differently now. All of that stuff, that's a more severe pain. And so I think it's fascinating that in that story, David's son Absalom, his hair is really long and he's really proud of it. And so while he's riding on a horse, he gets stuck in a tree. He's hanging from a tree.
Yeah, and his horse rides off.
And he's stuck there, and that's how he gets pierced and
Speared.
wounded and killed. And so the parallel with God the Father is fascinating, that his son also hangs from a tree and is pierced and wounded. And so it's this understanding of if Jesus is the son of David, like, I get it. God's saying, I know the cost you're enduring. And I think a lot of people, because there's not many public conversations about this, privately they get on a church staff or they start enacting God's vision for their life, and the cost happens. And because they'd never accounted or wanted God to allow that to happen, they have no theology that includes that spiritual flexibility. So I guess what we're trying to do today is encourage people who are currently there, because everyone you meet is going through some private battle.
For sure.
Be it in a
100%.
church context or not. The reality is God sees you and he understands, and now he can actually heal your immune system, and you can heal and continue, and this doesn't have to be the end. This cough doesn't have to kill you.
This cough doesn't have to kill you.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
You're not incomplete. You're just your immune system is being built.
That's right.
And so we want to encourage those of you who are listening or watching, is that there is a new version for you that you have not met yet.
I love it.
There's a new version of you.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Absolutely.
Is that we're promised to go from glory to glory. That's why we say our best days are right in front of it.
Yeah.
Our best days are right in front of us.
Yeah.
We genuinely believe
100%.
that. I believe it for you.
Yeah, same.
Even if I've never met you, I believe it for you because it says it in the Bible.
Right.
And that's like a check that doesn't bounce.
Exactly.
Like, I believe everything that the Bible says.
Yeah.
Even the things that hurt my feelings, I believe it.
Yeah. Especially.
So
yeah.
there is a new version of you. it will require your immune system to grow stronger.
Big time.
But when it does, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
then it is one of those things to where you're like,
Yeah.
why does the burden and the blessing come together?
Right.
It's the same reason why every rose has its thorns, right?
Absolutely.
Because the rose is beautiful.
Yeah.
It also has thorns.
Yeah.
You know, it is the same reason that you can't have the crown without the cross.
Right.
It is all of those things, but all of those things, it actually drives you back in to your relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because you go, this is painful. I can't do this.
Yeah.
But God.
Right.
And that's where his grace comes in.
Wow.
So anyways, we're excited for you guys to let us know
Yeah.
about how your immune system is growing and how you're facilitating flexibility.
Would love to hear that.
How you're picking your pain so your pain doesn't pick you.
Yeah.
And more Uber stories, please.
Absolutely.
We love you guys.
See you next
See
time.
ya.
Nice, man. That was really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that.